Hello everyone and welcome to this week's behind the scenes devlog video, and this week I'm going to be attempting to implement birds of prey, birds that can hunt other animals. So it's already Thursday today. My schedule at the moment is a little bit all over the place because I've started to plan my next project. It's still a long way off though. There's still lots of stuff that I want to implement into Equilinox first, but I thought it would be good to at least start thinking about the future a bit. And not just in terms of the next projects, but also in terms of the YouTube channel, what content I'm going to be making, maybe bringing back the tutorials and stuff like that. But as I said, it's still going to be quite a while before that happens. And for now, I'm still very much working on Equilinox. So as you can see, I've already made the models for these new birds. I've just been finishing them off this morning. And the plan for these birds, these eagles, is that they're going to be living up in the mountains in Equilinox. They'll make their nests there, and they'll then be able to fly down from the mountains into the nearby biomes and go hunting for smaller animals like rabbits and guinea pigs. And when they go hunting, they'll swoop down, hopefully catch one of the smaller animals, and then they'll carry it back to their nest. So they'll fly back up the mountain carrying the smaller animal, and they'll then drop it off at the nest and it will become food for the baby birds. So the first step that I have to do today is to export these models from Blender and get them loaded up in Equilinox. Quarter to 11 now, and I've got the eagles loaded up in the game and flying around. I've just given them some very basic bird settings, the same as the other birds that I already had in Equilinox. I did just make a few alterations to the movement code for the flying so that they can fly around slightly differently from the smaller birds. They're a little bit faster, and I'm sure I'll tweak the movement code more in the next days, but for now I want to get started with their behaviours, and the first one that I'm going to implement is their nesting behaviour. And to do that, I first need to make a new model for the eagle's nest. I finished making the model for the nest now, and I'm not overly happy with it. I've always had trouble making nests in low poly because if you add too many sticks it becomes very high poly very quickly. So I've had to go. Anyway, it looks alright for now. I'll probably change it tomorrow at some point. But as you can see, I've broken the nest down into sections, and this will allow the nest to be built in stages in the game. So the bird will keep visiting the nest, and every time it does, it will build the nest up a little bit more, and then when the nest is fully built it will lay the eggs. So I'm just going to start implementing that in the game now. Next up, I've exported all the nest model sections from Blender and converted them into the Equilinox file format, which you can see here. And luckily I've already implemented nests in Equilinox before, so I've actually got all the components already implemented for this. So for the nest, you can see I've added a build component to it, which allows it to be built. And then in the species file for the eagle, you can see that I've added a builder component, which allows it to build something, and this here is the ID of the thing that it can build, and as you can see that's the ID of the eagle's nest. And then I've also added a nesting component to the eagle, which makes it require a nest in order to reproduce, and it also makes sure that when it reproduces all of the babies will spawn in the nest. So you can see an example of this in the game here. The birds will keep visiting the nest, and when they do, they build it. So you can see a fully built nest here, and then the birds will start laying eggs in it, and these eggs will hatch into chicks. As you might have noticed, the nest is on the floor. Firstly, this is because the nest model and the eagle model is a little bit big to fit in the trees. But also there are some species of eagle who do actually nest in rocky cliffs in real life, and I know it's not quite the same being on a mountain, but it's as close as I could get. Anyway, I'm going to stop for some lunch now and make some pasta. This afternoon I've been getting started with the first bit of actual programming that I've had to do, and that is to do with the hunting behaviour, which is what I'm going to be spending most of my time working on in the next day or two. And at the moment it's very simple. It simply checks if it needs to go hunting, and it also checks if it can go hunting, if there's any prey nearby, and if there is, then it goes hunting. And to do that, it simply queues up the bird hunting AI for the eagle. And at the moment, the bird hunting AI is extremely simple. All it tries to do is to land on the prey, and I've programmed landing before. I already had the birds able to land in trees, so it just uses the same landing behaviour. And yeah, at the moment you can see the eagle just constantly trying to land on a guinea pig. For the rest of the afternoon today, I've been working on allowing the eagles to pick up their prey when they catch it. And to do this, I've given it an equip component. This is a component that I've programmed in the past already. It's used for the foxes to allow them to pick up meat, and I think the beavers also use it when they're picking up sticks and building their den. And I've just used this in the hunting AI for the birds, so you can see that when the bird reaches its prey, it then picks up its prey using the equipping component and carries it back home. And you can see that happening in the game here, so the eagle is hunting the guinea pigs, and when it catches one, it can now pick it up, and it then flies home with it. Getting straight back to work on the hunting behaviour this morning, and the first thing that I wanted to implement today was the ability for the eagles to drop their prey once they've reached their home area. So you can see the eagle brings the guinea pig back home, and then it drops it in its home area, and the guinea pig dies and turns into meat, and this meat is obviously what the eagles are then going to feed from. This morning I've been doing lots of little tweaks and improvements to the hunting system. So firstly, to do with dropping the animal. Previously it would drop the animal directly straight down like that, which doesn't look particularly realistic because the dropped animal loses all forward momentum when it's dropped. So what I've done now is that when the animal gets dropped, its starting velocity when it's dropped is the same as the bird that drops it. So you can see that it kind of maintains that forwards velocity, and it just looks a little bit more physically correct. Also, as you might have noticed, the birds are now dropping off the food at the nest area instead of just somewhere nearby. So you can see this bird is taking the squirrel back home, and it drops it off at the nest. And I've also made sure that the baby birds, I've just altered their AI a bit so that they don't wander too far from the nest, so they're always fairly close to the food source. So the bird hunting AI code is now pretty much finished, and I just wanted to quickly show you through it now that it's done. So this is the main code that gets run every frame while the bird is hunting. First it checks if it's already on its way home. If it's already caught the prey, then it just continues to fly back home, and that just involves going towards a target, and that target is the drop-off position. That's the place where it's going to drop off the prey, and once it's reached that position, it simply throws down the prey using the equipper component, and the initial velocity of the prey, as I mentioned earlier, is set to the current velocity of the hunting bird. However, if the bird's still hunting, then it first checks to see if its prey is still available, because if the prey is dead, then obviously it can't hunt it anymore. But if the prey is still available, then it attempts to land on the prey using the same code that the other birds use to land on trees. If it successfully lands on the prey, then it picks up the prey using the equipping component. It chooses the dropping off position, so it just finds the nest and sets that to the drop off position, and it then sets going home to true, so that in the next frame this bit of code gets run. So with that, the hunting behaviour is now pretty much finished. There are still a few little bugs and glitches with it that I need to iron out, but in general it's basically working now. And I've actually been attempting to implement this hunting behaviour a few times over the last few weeks. I've had a few attempts, but it's never really turned out quite right. So I'm really happy that I finally got it working this week. Not too much more to do for the eagles now. I've just been implementing, well, just giving them their eating behaviour. Obviously I've programmed eating for other entities before, so all I had to do was to add the eating component in the species file for the eagle, and I set its diet to meat. So now in the game you can see that the baby birds have a hunger bar and they're now able to eat from the meat. For the rest of the afternoon I've just been polishing up the eagle species and finishing it all off, doing the settings, the usual stuff, the environmental preferences and evolution requirements. I also had a go at trying to improve the nest model a bit. I've been thickening up the branches so that they don't look so thin and spindly in the game, and I've also just started trying to tweak the movement a bit to allow the eagles to fly a bit faster, but I've still got a bit of work to do on that because they're currently crashing into the mountain quite a lot. But I'll have to do that another time because I need to stop and catch a train now because I'm going into the city for a dinner event this evening. So it is Saturday morning and that is pretty much going to be it for this week. Today I'm just going to be doing the editing for the devlog video, and I haven't updated Equilinox on Steam just yet. I still need to do a lot of testing to make sure that all the updates that I've been doing in the last few weeks aren't going to break the game, because that would not be very good. But once I've done the testing I'll be uploading it to Steam, and that will definitely happen in the next week. For this week though, that is it. So thank you guys very much for watching this video. Do subscribe if you haven't already. Have a fantastic week, and I will see you all next time.